Okay, welcome to Startup Therapist, where we talk about the people part of startups. And we've got a fantastic guest today. Hey, Mark.
Hey, how you doing?
Mark Achler is a very unique venture capitalist because he's also a serial entrepreneur that has started 4 companies over the course of his career. So I'll briefly introduce him, and then we're going to get right into talking to a real-life VC who's cutting checks these days. And I think it'll be a lot of fun and pretty useful. Mark is the managing director and co-founder of Math Venture Partners, which is a $28 million fund based in Chicago. However, they do make investments outside Chicago as well. Mark, how many investments have you made so far?
To date, we've made 18 investments all across the country. The bulk of them in Chicago, so we've made 8 investments in Chicago and 10 around the country.
Okay, any particular sector?
You know, we're industry agnostic. We have a particular focus, which is we have a maniacal focus on companies and founding teams who really appreciate sales, customer acquisition, however you define it, and it's a little bit different for each company.
Yeah.
But we
Good.
really care about sales.
Good, but we're going to drill into that in a second. In addition to being a VC, Mark, as I mentioned, is also a serial entrepreneur. He's got 4 startups under his belt. And in between, he served an executive role as the head of new products and innovation at Redbox, which is a $1 billion company where Mark, who's quite modest, helped pioneer some pretty interesting new businesses to fit in those red boxes that you see at your grocery store. He's also a teacher at Kellogg School of Business and teaches entrepreneurship. So, Mark, you've got a great perspective that you can share with us across the board.
I apologize for the slight delay.
Why don't we start with, can you hear me okay?
I had another call waiting, and okay. I just ended it. Sorry.
No problem. No problem. First question is, we know, I think a lot of our readers understand that VCs look for a lot of things in a business. But I want to spend a few minutes talking about what you look for in the founder or the founders, the entrepreneur. What characteristics, what types of things help you check that box and say, this is a horse that I would bank on? Perhaps even over an idea that is just perfect, but you fall in love with that entrepreneur or founder because of some specific characteristics, if in fact you do.
No, we do. So we are in the pattern recognition business. We talk to 25 entrepreneurs a week at Math Venture Partners. So I see entrepreneurs of all stripes and flavors. You know, I would say in aggregate, what we really look for is a combination of persistence and empathy. So, you know, everyone knows that as entrepreneurs, you have to be persistent. You have to assume that everyone assumes you're going to fail, and you have to just knock down walls and not take no for an answer. But persistence without empathy, without the ability to listen and put yourself truly in the other person's shoes and understand their point of view. If you don't have that empathy, persistence alone is not enough. And so we look for that unique combination of skills combined with integrity. You know, a lot of times we don't talk enough about integrity. Values really matter to us, and we like to invest in people who we share common values with.
That comes through due diligence, I assume, and backdoor reference checks, that kind of thing. You can't tell in a meeting if integrity is there or not. Or have you learned some ways to do that?
Yeah, no, you can. I mean, yes, it requires time and getting to know people and watching them under difficult circumstances, of course. But there's telling leading questions that we could ask about in your past experiences when you had a problem. How did you deal with it? And, you know, we nibble around the edges of past and prior experiences, and you can learn a lot about people's values based on their actions.
Tell me a bit about, circling back to the first point, these people that have this drive, let's call it, and just sheer determination, and these people that also are able to listen and take input. How rare is that overlap, the Venn diagram of, if you will, of people that are able to balance those two?
It's really rare. In fact, let me give you a concrete example.
Please.
Every single day, entrepreneurs pitch us, and they talk about their features. Our product does this. Our product does that. X, Y, and Z. And I always stop them, and I say, that's nice, but I don't care. Like, I care, but not really. Like, what I want to hear is not what your product does. What I want to hear is, from the point of view and voice of your customer, what problems are you solving, and why are those problems so urgent that they will trust you, a startup, to solve some key pain point that they have? And then tell me, most importantly, how are you going to sell it? I can't tell you the number of entrepreneurs who come to us and never once talk about sales. They always talk about the product, but they don't talk about how they're going to sell it or distribution channels.
Is that because many of the entrepreneurs that you see come from a product or technical background and don't come from a sales and marketing background, or even the people that come from sales and marketing don't focus enough on it?
Yeah, it's true that especially in technology companies, many of the founders have technology backgrounds. But even when they do have sales and marketing backgrounds, it's so easy to get wrapped up in your own point of view. I'll give you another concrete example of that. When these entrepreneurs come and talk to us, many times they don't do some of the simple block and tackling of due diligence on us and try to understand what our investment thesis is. Why do we invest in certain companies? It's really, I think due diligence is bi-directional. I think entrepreneurs should be doing just as much due diligence on venture capitalists as we do on them.
And it's so easy to find out now. I have to think you're not very impressed if the person hasn't done their homework.
Exactly. And it's so easy to find out.
Not like it was years ago. Now it's simple.
Right. And, even going to the step of calling, because every VC has the list of their portfolio companies on their website. It's really easy to see who our portfolio companies are. Pick up the phone and call the CEO of a portfolio company. Like, how did you do it? What are these guys what are these guys looking for? What are they like to work with?
Yep.
Right? Come armed. Do your homework. Just like some basic, 101 stuff.
Especially when they're trying to impress you and make a good first impression. So you talked a lot about potential investments in a founder. Let's say you have made an investment in a team or a founder or co-founders. Over the years, what patterns have you seen in terms of what separates those entrepreneurs who keep their head together in this crazy roller coaster journey versus those that don't? So you have a portfolio right now of 18 CEOs or co-founding teams. Some, I presume, a lot of confidence. They know what they're doing. They got it. Others are kind of a mess. What characteristics differentiate those?
So I am 57 years old. I didn't figure this out till I was 50. I am a really slow learner. Here's what I learned. And it's all about the team. An individual can only go so far. A talented CEO, no matter how good the CEO is, can only scale a company so far. In order to really grow, it requires a team. And a team that is empowered, that is working at a high level, that, many CEOs I know are afraid to hire senior executives, but it takes a team to grow and scale a business. And a team that is working cohesively, in partnership, where the culture is strong, and where the CEO can set vision, hire the very best people they possibly can, and then get out of their way.
So that would imply that the number one job of the founder or CEO is recruiting and developing the culture and then backing off and letting people kind of take flight and for the business to flourish.
So setting the vision, absolutely. And setting the vision, making sure all the pieces are in place, making sure capital's there, taking care of roadblocks when roadblocks happen, and they do happen. But fundamentally, if you hire the right team, you got to trust them to go do their job and create an environment that enables them to do their job. So for me, the difference between the companies that really grow and scale and succeed and the companies that don't are the founding CEOs who understand the power of putting that in order to scale, the power of putting a team together.
For a founder who's a first-timer, who either has never really recruited people before and or has never led or managed many people before, how do you recommend that they learn that skill set? There's a bit of an art to it.
Well, there's more than an art to it, yeah. Part of it, and there's no right or wrong answer here. There's two schools of thought around boards of directors. I personally like to be the dumbest guy in the room. When I was a CEO, I'd like to have the strongest possible board I can because I want to be a sponge. I want to listen. I want to learn. Why should I repeat a mistake that they've already made?
Sure.
Right? And so one of the ways that a CEO can really, a first-time CEO can really learn is by surrounding themselves with as much talent as possible. And it starts with a particularly strong board of directors. Now, I know some people feel the opposite, that they don't like to have a strong board because they don't want to be told what to do or they're threatened by a board. I always say if you're delivering the results, you want to have, just like you want to have the best possible team in place to help you execute and grow your business, I think you also want to have the best possible board.
So the founder entrepreneur can learn from the board how to build the culture, how to recruit people. Is that what you're saying?
Right. And so if you think of it from a board composition perspective, if you're raising capital, usually let's call it a 5-person board, just for argument's sake. Maybe there's one founder, maybe there's 2 founders on the board, depending on the company. Maybe there's one VC representing the financial interest. Sometimes there's 2, depending upon how a round comes together. And usually there's somebody with domain expertise from some inside industry experience. And hopefully around that table, and maybe there's 2 outside board members if possible, you have some coaching and mentoring. You have some people on your board who've gone through, serial entrepreneurs who had that success, who've gone through all the issues that you're about to go through, and who can help guide you and mentor you. And it really starts with trust. The entrepreneur who's comfortable in their own skin, who builds a board where there's openness and transparency and really cohesiveness in terms of working together to try to solve problems. And if you're an entrepreneur, there's always problems, right?
Every day, right?
Every day, right? So you need the help.
So last topic is kind of an interesting one, which is founder or CEO succession. Sometimes I assume as the VC, the board, you might lose confidence in the individual and ask them to step aside. Other times the individual might say, I'm the wrong person to run this, and a search is done. Can you talk a bit about the telltale signs, regardless of who spots it first? Where do you start to smell, there's a problem here, and we may want to think about making a change? And then second, what can an entrepreneur do or a founder do to make sure that process goes smoothly and goes well versus kind of being tossed out of their own business and losing control, which happens, of course, when you raise outside money?
Well, let me answer that by rephrasing it slightly.
Please.
Which is, once you take outside capital, you're taking their agenda. And not only are you taking their agenda, so if you're a VC, my agenda is sometime in a 5 to 7 year time horizon, I would like to get my money back and hopefully more money than I put in, right? And that's if you take my money, you're taking my agenda.
That's what you're paid to do by your investors in the fund.
Exactly. When you take other people's money, you have a moral and fiduciary responsibility to put their interests ahead of yours. So it's not about you anymore, and it's not about you as an individual CEO, co-founder. It's about the shareholders.
It's the line, I serve at the pleasure of the board. That's the concept.
Well, and you put the needs and the interests of the shareholders first. Right? Many entrepreneurs do not understand that. That Faustian bargain that you're making, but for example, at Math Venture Partners, I look every single entrepreneur in the eye before we make an investment and say, listen, this is the deal. You understand, right? And when I talked about values, part of the values I'm talking about is, look, shareholders come first. It's not about you anymore. It's about your shareholders. So first and foremost, you have to understand that.
And you can't give the money back. Once you're down that path, it's pretty much done.
It's pretty much done.
Yeah.
So then the question is telltale signs. And you should know that, and your listeners should know that I have been on both sides of that equation. I have been a board member, an investor that had to fire a CEO. It was a very difficult thing to do.
Yep.
And I've been a CEO that was fired.
Yep.
One of the worst days of my life.
Not fun either.
And the board actually made the right call.
Yeah.
Right. So I have been on all sides of that equation.
And so what are the earliest telltale signs, regardless of which side of the equation, where you can get a sense that there's a need for a change?
Well, the first, I would say it's financial and cultural. Financially, the metrics are pretty straightforward. You're either hitting your numbers or you're not hitting your numbers. If you're not hitting your numbers, we got to start digging in why. Culturally is much more nuanced and sensitive. Is the team coming together? Does the team support the CEO? Sometimes there are cultural issues that become very sensitive. Sometimes there's individual personal quirks that become an issue.
Sometimes you probably have senior people coming around the founder or CEO directly to the board and perhaps complaining or raising an issue.
It comes in all shapes and flavors. But at the end of the day, I'll give you my own personal experience in a board where I had two things that happened. I made the cardinal sin when I was a CEO. There was a big deal, and I told the board that deal was going to happen, and then it fell through. And I had set the expectations that it was a life-changing deal for us.
Yep.
It did not happen. Combined with, I had some co-founders who were not getting along, and I was the CEO, and I didn't solve the issue.
Got it.
And maybe I was even contributing to making it worse.
Yep.
And so there was a combination of not hitting our numbers, setting expectations appropriately, as well as there were some cultural team issues that needed addressing and were not being addressed.
Do you have an estimate of a statistic? I know you're early in these 18 companies, but over the course of your time as an investor and an operator, if you were asked, after a couple years, what percent of the founders are still running the company versus a new outsider? Is it small, large? Does anyone know?
I don't know the exact numbers, but my perception is, if I had to pick a number, maybe a third of the founders survive through the multiple stages. Getting a company from, let's call it 0 to 5 million is one set of skills. Getting a company from 5 to 20 million, a totally different set of skills, right? Going from 20 million to 100 million. Once again.
It's a very rare person that can scale that whole spectrum.
Very rare.
And be emotionally honest about the need to change, to surround themselves with other people, etc.
Totally.
Yeah.
And being also that, I talked about being able to let go and hiring the right team and continuing to upgrade that team and then empowering that team and giving them not only the responsibility but the authority to execute, right? That's very hard for many entrepreneurs to let go of that control. And bureaucracy, it's really funny. Many people think of bureaucracy, entrepreneurs think of bureaucracy as the devil, right? Bureaucracy is horrible. I have a little bit of a different twist on it. I think bureaucracy is institutionalized wisdom. So what I mean by that is we did something wrong. Oh, we learned from that. Here's a rule.
We have a way of doing things for a reason.
Right. And those rules over time build up and propagate what becomes a set of successful rule books to how do you grow and run your business. The downside of bureaucracy is you're not always challenging. It becomes etched in stone, and you don't challenge those rules. And entrepreneurs are rule breakers by definition, and it's oftentimes very hard for entrepreneurs to grow with their companies. It happens, but it's the exception rather than the rule.
And your estimate is that fewer than half are still leading the business after some reasonable period of time. So either the board and the investors decide there's a need for a change, or the person realizes that there's a need for a change and they drive it themselves.
Yeah, I would say most of the time it's the entrepreneur who says, yeah, this is not fun anymore.
Yeah, right.
This is work.
Right. It's not what I signed up for.
Yeah, and oftentimes, I mean, sometimes it happens to the entrepreneurs, but many times it's the entrepreneur is self-aware enough to say, this is not for me.
Great. Well, Mark, this has been very helpful. Where can folks learn more about Math Venture Partners if they're interested in seeing if they could be a fit for your portfolio?
Yep. Our website is math, venturepartners.com.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right.
Have a good day, Mark. Take care.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.